This episode of Truth Table is brought to you by our NAACP Image Award nominated book, Truth Table, Black Women's Musings on Life, Love, and Liberation. Get it where all books are sold.
Sisters, how y'all feel? Brothers, y'all all right? If this is your first time at Truth Table, welcome to the table. And if you've been sitting at the table with us all these years, we are so grateful that you have been listening to us through these years, and we are inviting you to partner with us and support our work at patreon.com/truthstable. Now pull up a chair and have a seat at the table with us. Hey y'all, welcome to Truth Table, Midwives of Culture for Grace and Truth. I'm Ekemini.
And I'm Christina.
This table is built by Black women and for Black women. So welcome to the table. See how you doing, yeah?
I'm at the table and I'm counting down the minutes to DoorDash or some delivery company to bring us food.
Hilarious. In other words, you're hungry.
I am hungry. I just want to acknowledge that.
But we're going to give it our all.
That's right.
Because this episode that's on the table, we are still in our Back to Basics
Come on now.
Series where we will be wrapping it up shortly. But we're going to be talking about giving. Giving is on the table. So yeah, what about giving? Not just, with regard to our money, but time, our talent, presence.
Oh,
I think that's one that we don't.
Giving of yourself, just like your presence. Oh, that's a big one.
That's a big one, actually.
There's a lot of pushback on that, actually.
As of late, I would say. Exactly. So
time, talent, treasure, and presence.
That's right. So giving, that is what's on the table. So yeah, what is coming up for you as we talk about giving?
I love your hand gestures that are like, feel the spirit.
So many of thoughts.
Because that works every time. Yeah. So, I mean, the reason why I think it's important that we just talk about giving is because there's some ways in which, giving is a real stumbling block, and it's been perverted and misused to harass people, to harm people, to exploit people. Exactly. To offer people false promises that God did not give them based on giving. So there's some ways in which I don't think we've had a healthy conversation about the beauty of giving.
Yes.
Because of all the abuses related to it. So, and I do think it is a kind of a foundational part of what it means to be a Christian is that because God has given so much, we become people who give. Yes. Like we are givers. And yeah, giving has just fallen on hard times because there's been a lot of manipulation, right? Like I said before, but yet it is a part of our character. It's almost like in the sense that God is forgiving, we are forgiving people. It's supposed to be who we are.
Really?
God, that's what I read.
A revelation.
That's what I read. Didn't say that's what I did, but that's what I read. And likewise, I think, our God is generous, and that has to be a part of our new holy DNA is that we ought to be people that are giving as well. So I think it's worth talking about it as a foundational part of Christian identity. That's why we're talking about it in this Back to the Basics series. And so how are you feeling as we approach it, right? What are the initial thoughts when you think about the topic of giving and Christian identity, time, talent, treasure, presence?
Yeah, I try to think about it as, and I don't think I did in the beginning of my walk, but I try to think about it more comprehensively. And so I think I used to only think about it with regard to tithe and offering. And I don't think that's a bad thing. Even if you still think about it as only that. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
But after walking with the Lord for a couple decades now, I'm like, okay, I've kind of grown in my thinking beyond not beyond that that very basic
haven't left it behind,
Because
I'm above giving money now.
Oh,
I'm too holy to give.
Thinking, I don't do that anymore. I'm like, well, what do you do? But anyway, so that for me is kind of the floor now, right? So so tithes and offerings. So the way I think about that is just even with my money, I really do understand that this is not my own.
Yeah.
Even when I had a lot of it back when I was in corporate America, now I'm in ministry where I'm like, well, daily bread, trust in the Lord.
Let me teach you how to pray.
Yeah, I just realized it's not mine. I never no matter how much I got, no matter how little I have. And so I try to go, just thank you, Lord. And so I really do try to give my 10th, my tithe to the Lord with a cheerful heart. Because there was a time where I could not give it. I actually just did not have the treasure to give.
Right.
So, and I think that's
Right.
kind of what helped to evolve my thinking on that was like, well, what do I have?
Yeah.
I have talent. I
Yeah.
can serve in the church.
Yeah.
I have a teaching gift. I can teach.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I can do discipleship. I can walk alongside people.
Mhm.
That is also a way that I give, right?
Mhm.
That also covers presence, right?
Absolutely.
So being present in the local church, being present with the other saints and being present with not yet believers is, you know, having an open door. But I mean, it's being accessible, right? Being
Yeah.
available. I had to do that for quite a season because I just was like, I didn't have a job. I was in graduate school. I didn't, you know, there was a lot of things. You fall on hard times. I'm like, I actually just don't really have it. I ain't got the widow's mite, Lord.
Yeah.
But what I have, I give, right?
Mhm.
I think about serving, you know, formally serving in the church. And then I think about ways to be generous to other people, you know, so if there's had a loss in their family, if they have a baby on the way, you know, or whether it could be good or bad, you know, just trying to even if you ain't got a lot, still give a little something, you know, write them a little check. I know that's an old school thing, you know. I know another old school thing, you know, a little something just to show generosity, because I think sometimes we hoard and hold on to because we think, if I let this go, it's not going to come back to me.
Yeah.
If I let this go, I got rent. If I let this go, I mean, that's scarcity, you know, mentality can come. And I was like, you know what? Same way I could write this check for $100 to give to this person, the Lord can easily pay that back quickly with a quick opportunity that happened, or it happens all the time. I see it way too many times. Yeah, like it's literally just happened. I think the other day, actually, you know, where it's just like, okay, I'm just gonna give. Like I had this bill that came in and was like, oh, boom, oh yeah, that invoice, oh, perfect, that paid for that. Yeah, you know, so I try to really live generously. Yeah, I really do. Like there's a couple of people I actually literally have to put some checks in the mail to this week. So I'm like, just the Lord will always, you know, it will always bless us back, I think, in those ways, even outside of just tithing and offering. I don't know if we always think about it that way, but I think God honors that. Yeah.
Well, you're really good at that. I think what people don't realize is that being thought of is a gift to people. And you know,
I do try to remember people.
Yeah, remembering people is, and you know, ever since my memory got a little shaky a few years back, it's a deep value I have. It's an appreciation to be able to remember and to be remembered. And so it doesn't even, I obviously we got bills to pay and we want to be paid appropriate fees and all the things. However, it's oftentimes not necessarily the amount. It is that someone has made space for you, thought of you, got a letter, you got a card, wrote it with their own handwriting because they had to take cursive classes because they're old, and they put it in the mail.
With a stamp. Come on.
With a stamp.
Go to the post office, maybe they have to go to the,
I mean, you can't do that electronically.
Listen,
you got to go to the post office. Or you can go to your mailbox and put the little thing up, right? So all those things. And there is something to remembering that is godlike. Like God remembers us and takes note of us. And when we do that for other people, it is like a God wink to them. Like, I remembered you and here you have this.
I learned that from my mom. My mom was very good about being thoughtful like that.
It's a real gift. And I think even when you think about it in the context of scripture, it is often not the amount, but what the amount means about the expression of one's faith and honor of God. That's right. You know, and so, you know, for people who have gobs of money, you know, you know, they have the capacity.
They're out there.
They have the capacity to give and give. I mean, if they so choose, right? Although if we look at some of the research that it'll show that oftentimes it is the people who numerically have the least who give the most, who are not as defined by those resources. And I do think that the Lord is doing the correct math on what we give in proportion to who we are, what we have, and what our story is. And so it's not the raw or flat amount. It is the testimony and the gift that we're giving. And so I think that can help us to not despise or scoff at our attempts to serve, our attempts to give. And because I do think there's a way in which we talk ourselves out of giving time, talent, treasure, and presence, because it's like, well, it's not enough. I don't have enough, or it's not going to be good enough, or I'm not good enough at this, you know. If somebody,
or it's not going to be a knowledge, it's not going to be appreciated.
Oh, for sure.
Wait a minute. So that gets to our heart behind why doing it. Yep.
Absolutely. I know. I mean, I have worked with in the context of church planting, and also in the context of mega church, established big churches. And one of the things that I really love about church plants and house churches and storefront churches and churches, whether they're brand spanking new or whether they've been around a long time, is that the way you think about time, talent, and treasure is just much more present and urgent. And it doesn't offer all this like self-talk where you decide like I don't sing good enough, so I can't do this. No, it's a church plant. You singing. It's a storefront. Well, you're gonna sing, you know. And so whereas I think sometimes in the mega church or polished church model, we have professionals that do everything. And it sometimes sends the message to people that if you can't hit this note just right, or if you can't give this amount, then you shouldn't give anything at all. And it is all hands on deck in those types of church contexts. Obviously, underground church, it's all hands on deck.
Yes,
right?
Sure.
Storefront church, house church. And so I think, and in many ways, I think that reflects the early church, and that we are equipped to give something, even if we don't think it's of great value. And that it will surprise us how there are people there that are ready to receive the thing that we don't think is a really big deal.
I would love to talk about giving, of sitting with a little bit more about presence.
Yeah.
I think because post-pandemic, churches all across the board, regardless of the race, wherever they are struggling with getting people into the building, getting back, right? Getting back into the building, right? But then also, I think there's a thing about presence within our own friendships and relationships and whatnot, in which there's a lot of this kind of, separate, if they are draining you or negative or they can do nothing for you, then you just need to cut them off. Even if they're family.
Highly transactional.
Transactional. Yeah. Everything is about me. And I'm so saddened by the ways in which, the ways that our capitalistic system is, it's just really dividing us and individualizing us in ways that we were never meant to be.
Yeah. And the wounds are showing.
And they're showing. And so like, I think that people maybe don't always understand that your presence matters. Yeah. People need you. Yeah. People that don't even know you need you. Like we want to see you there. We want to see you walk into the halls of the church, or the aisle, whatever. Like everybody's church looks a little different. So that's fine.
Whatever it looks like.
Because we need your presence. We need your gifts. We need your skills. We need all of that.
Yeah.
We need even what you feel you don't have to offer.
Yeah.
We just need you there.
Yeah.
And I don't think that people always hear that. I don't think they understand that. Like we really do need one another. And I think if people understood that or heard that message more, they would know there's a place for you. Because people are longing for belonging. They're longing to be wanted and to be needed and to be invited in. Yeah. To commune with other people. I don't know if maybe we just don't, I don't know if we don't frame it, that way as the church. But I think that like we are hurting without, the presence of not only people that were a part of the church already, but of people that are not yet believers. Yeah. They have so many gifts, so much ingenuity and creativity, and so much life experience, to offer us, and a fresh lens too.
Absolutely.
To give to us, and we don't have that. We just, we lack. I think in those ways, and so
your presence is powerfully important. Yeah. It's powerful. I mean, as you were talking, I was thinking about just in as a kid or just in my younger years, people that were in the church context that may have never been at the pulpit. So it may not have been a clergy person. It could have been something like the doorkeeper. It could have been an usher. It could have been
security,
just someone who sat at a specific space, right? And the way in which those people's presence sent comfort and familiarity and
Stability,
belonging.
yeah.
Exactly. And then when that presence went away, maybe they passed away, or particularly in the church that I was raised in with an older congregation,
you feel the loss.
you can feel absence. Anybody who's gone through and experienced grief, you can feel the person not there.
Yes, you can.
Sometimes even more powerfully than the person being there. Yes,
Exactly.
you can feel absence.
Yep.
And I understand that people have all kinds of legitimate issues with the church and with people of faith and with themselves. I mean, there's many things to talk about.
Yeah.
But I think that something is broken when we don't realize that just flat out absence doesn't have a great consequence. One, people need to know that your absence actually matters.
Mm-hmm.
Like you are missed.
Yes.
Like your presence, to your point, is you are a part of the puzzle that makes this what this is.
Yes.
But also when people kind of just disappear, because we've talked about like ghosting and dating,
Ooh, yeah.
but there's a ghosting in the context of faith community. There's a ghosting in the context of friendships, family, and it's more than reasonable that people have to step away or they have to move to something else or whatever. But the power of saying until we meet again. And I don't know about you if you've ever been at a church where the benediction song was until we meet again.
Mm-hmm.
That is probably my favorite benediction song. And it makes me tearful.
Say a few of the words for people. Just
until we meet again, until we cross that final shore, until something about something no more.
Yeah.
May he give you the peace to endure until we meet again. And that song is profound to me as someone who knows people who I know that I'm not going to meet them again until glory.
Period.
That's right. My husband talked recently about a friend of ours, a Nigerian friend who was killed through a conflict that was happening in his community. And the last time we saw him years ago, and we are just like so privileged and naive. Yeah. He's like, well, we're going to see you again. And we're thinking like when you come back to the States or one day we'll come to Nigeria. And he said, well, I'll either see you on this side or I will see you in Abraham's bosom. And then we get a report that he has been killed. His pregnant wife has been killed. And the wife was killed too? As well, yeah. And so this incredibly sober reality. And I think about the early church because the early church experienced persecution. And certainly there are parts of the world where that's reality now too. Yeah. This idea of that when we're departing, that this benediction is taking place. We take it for granted.
That's why we say God willing.
God willing, we will meet again.
Will.
Yeah. Like that benediction song is sung over a people where this might be your last time. This might be your last time. And that I think shifts the way that we think about saying goodbye for that moment to our brothers and sisters. Yeah. And so I just think I know that feels like a downer or it's a bit sobering, but it's just true.
A prelude to the grief episode.
But it's just true. It's just true.
It is true.
It's true. We ghost people and we act as if we have another day. We act as if we have another Sunday. We don't know what we have. And that goodbye until I see you again or until I see you in Abraham's bosom takes on a whole new meaning to me.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know when our lives will be demanded of us, so don't withhold the goodness of your presence from other people. Yeah. That's family. And as we get older, I realized I was like, dang, how many more times will I feasibly? I don't live in the same state as my mom. How many times will I feasibly see my mom? You don't, when you break it down, you go, huh, how many times will I feasibly see auntie, uncle, or whatnot? How many times will I feasibly see, because it's weekly, right?
Yeah.
Sister so-and-so at church.
Yeah.
Because we just assume that we will. But that we don't, nobody knows.
And we're not talking about persisting in situations that are abusive or toxic.
No, absolutely not. True step, come on now, y'all.
Come on now.
You should know that by now. But
come on now.
We would not, we would not.
But just because somebody's a little irritating, that don't mean you ghost them.
Yeah, exactly. That doesn't mean if they're harder to deal with. You got to understand that you are the headache for somebody.
My goodness, you are that person.
You are that person for somebody else. And so we got to be able to bear with one another's faults and grievances, and and walk with each other, give grace. But we really do need one another's presence, and so Anyway, let's, take a quick, I forgot, we was going on the tangent. I was like, let's take a quick commercial break.
Let's sprinkle a little trauma in there.
Yes. And when we come back, we will continue to talk about giving. So don't go nowhere. We'll be right back.
Our NAACP Image Award nominated book, Truth Table, Black Women's Musings on Life, Love, and Liberation, is making waves and shifting culture. I closed this book feeling like I had just partaken in a multi-course meal, filled with grace and the courage to carry on. And I believe you'll finish this book feeling the same way. Morgan Harper Nichols, artist and poet. Buy Truth Table, Black Women's Musings on Life, Love, and Liberation at our website or wherever books are sold.
And we are back at the table talking about giving. Time, talent, treasure, presence.
Giving is giving.
Oh,
do the young people still say that? Because I'm old enough to say young people.
They say it. They say it.
They do. Have you consulted with them?
They were saying giving. It's giving. I'm like, all right.
Okay.
So it's giving. All right. Well, let's make sure we are giving.
Hello?
It's giving.
I mean, it's giving.
So, yeah. So anyway, okay. Money. The love of it.
Listen.
The love of it is
the root of all kinds of evil.
Money is an inanimate object.
That's what the Bible says. It's the root of it.
It is the love of it. That is the root of it. So yeah, anyway, but the ways in which we've seen it manipulated. Now, I will say I have been blessed to be in churches where the finances are always on the up. There's never been any hearsay or any news of financial impropriety in any of my churches that I've been a part of, which I thank God for that. That is a gift. That is a blessing.
Sure.
And I am of the school of thought that this is a small fraction of churches, that come under that, type of scrutiny that are guilty, let me say, of that. I don't think that's the majority, but again, we know that it's the small minority that again, spoils. I'm mixing analogies here. Yeah. The bunch.
Keep working with it.
So keep working. I'm massaging it. I'm working it out.
Yeah. Work with it until it
I'm like, it's the fruit that spoils the vines. It's the rabbits that,
That's right. That have trails. Yes.
Trails. No, but yeah, it really is. It's just the little bit from my vantage point.
Yeah.
That begins to color, right? The church as corrupt. I don't know if that's completely fair, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
But I am grateful that in my 20 years of walking with the Lord, I have not had any of that type of issues. And my pastors had always been very, in some ways, overcorrecting.
Yeah.
Because of that issue. So not really emphasizing teaching on tithes and offerings that much. Yeah. Not to say that they didn't teach at all.
Yeah.
But they did
I've
not.
I've been to churches where they've never mentioned that in a formal teaching.
They just didn't make a big deal about it. They didn't make a big emphasis on it because they were overcorrecting because of what was happening in previous generations, particularly I would say probably in the 90s, prosperity gospel and the ways people were manipulating. Now I have been to how can you say church functions?
Oh, let me tell you something.
That were
conferences dynamic.
that were not connected to my church, but just went to churches where there'd be the $100 line. Well,
no, not $100.
Well, not no more. $500 line, $1,000 line. Yeah. It was just like, oh my gosh, and it felt gross. Felt manipulative. Doors locked. I was like, what is going on?
That is sounding really scary.
It was a little scary. I was like, what is going on? And just trying to promise to people things that God did not promise.
Right,
we can't buy blessings. Right. That's not how that works.
Yeah.
Blessings
that's not how this works. or forgiveness, right?
Yeah.
Neither one of those things can be bought. As you're talking about that, and I agree with you. Ditto. That I do think it is the minority, but it still matters because
absolutely.
It's a thing. But also, I think it harkens back to if you think about, like the legacy of the Catholic Church and the selling of indulgences.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking about.
And the ways in which kind of the Reformation is a response and people don't talk about it this way, but some people who study it do.
Mm-hmm.
They would say that the Reformation itself is a response to not just like works-based righteousness, but works-based righteousness as demonstrated through the fleecing of the flock and
Yes.
exploiting people
Yes. Yes.
for
Yes.
money and resources to
Yes.
say, like, if you give this, then you will be forgiven, or your loved one will certainly be in heaven, or whatever the
Yeah. Whatever the
vulnerability or
thing.
issue might have
Mm-hmm.
been.
Mm-hmm.
And so that clearly that is, that is performative works-based righteousness. Like you can buy favor with God, you can buy forgiveness with God, you can buy access to heaven for your loved one. That's
Mm-hmm.
absolutely what it is. But that was also a way in which for that particular church system to exploit people to kind of fatten their pockets, right? And I think the residue of that and the reality of that and the tradition of that exploitation of religious people is sadly a thread that goes throughout the church all
That's
over the
right.
world,
Yeah.
right? And it has to be named, called out, uprooted, because it is a form of legalism, exploitative legalism.
Mm-hmm.
And when people don't realize that God is extending grace and that grace is not for sale, the price has been paid by Christ alone,
Grace is not for
then
sale.
they can easily manipulate teaching to make that happen. And
For sure.
and that, we've seen people basically, tempt people to say like, well, you don't have enough faith, because if you had enough faith, then you would give more. Or if
Mm-hmm.
you really wanted this to happen in your life, you would do this. Like
Mm-hmm.
there are people who are like, well, this is the income that I want to make, so I'm going to tithe, not based on my income or what I have. I'm going to have a tithe that reflects the income that I want to have. And so these are things that you could do, but you shouldn't be doing that like you playing let's make a deal with God. I mean, I just think I'm like, you don't want to play let's make a
You
deal with
don't wanna
God,
do
because God
that.
did not tell you that's the deal that God wanted to make. And I can assure you that God is going to hold to God's deal
However,
that
right.
God made. So I do think, and I agree for people who have been exploited
Mm-hmm.
in this way, who either it was because of it was communicated, conferences, pulpit, you name it, or even in their own minds, they practice this kind of works-based righteousness, this plea bargaining, this brokering with God to get something.
Yeah.
And I think all of us can be tempted. And I think God is gracious. Sometimes, we do cry out and say, God, I'll do this if you just get me out of
You
this.
know how we do.
And the Lord does intervene and give us grace in those
Yeah.
situations, and also truly has cleaned our debt.
Yeah.
Clearly wiped out our debt.
As you were talking, I was thinking about quite a few different things, but I was thinking about the widow's mite, but then I was also thinking about the posture and that does coincide actually with the widow's mite. So like even when when we are giving of our treasure, our time, our talent, or giving to other people, right? Just through thoughtfulness and whatnot, we have to check our heart. It can't be, or it ought not be. Let me say, it ought not be,
because it is.
it ought not be that I'm gonna give this because I know God's gonna give it back. Yeah, or I'm gonna give this and because I know He's gonna multiply, or I'm just gonna.
Well, let's make a deal.
It shouldn't necessarily. It really should be out of a heart of gratitude, right, for what God has given. It should be out of a heart of care, love, and empathy for whoever it is you're giving to, right? Even outside of the church setting of tithes and offering and whatnot. So we should be doing these things not to get it back necessarily. And I think that's counterintuitive. I think that's countercultural in the ways in which that we're often taught to give, right? Is that pressed down, shaken together, running over with God, True. I mean, God does give it back, but something God gives back to us in different ways. Right. He could give back to us in health.
Yeah.
Longevity. That's a truth.
Or an expression of the fruit of the Spirit too.
The fruit of the Spirit. God can give back to us by bringing friends into. I don't know. There's a lot of multiple ways, manifold ways that God can bless us. And sometimes it's not a one for one. You gave this much money, God's going to double it and triple that. That's not necessarily how God operates and how He works. So I think that when it comes to giving, we always have to check our heart posture.
Yeah.
When it comes to giving, and I'll even throw this in with social media. We shouldn't let our left hand know what our right hand is doing. We shouldn't let our followers know what we're doing. Here I am right here giving. Because you do see that online, quite a bit. Or I'm doing this. I gave this to this person, so for your likes and for your retweets and your shares to go viral. Like we have to check our heart too, because the temptations they're because we can read, in the Bible and see like, oh, I would never do that, but nah, we got to read the Bible within the context of our world, as well, and see how is this still relevant? How does this still apply? So I think about even the widow's mite and the fact that Jesus talked about how this widow, I mean, she gave literally all she had to give, which was that one mite. She didn't have anything else to give, and she's given more than everybody else there who had much more.
Yeah, much more to give.
Much more to give. And what does it mean to wholly and completely depend on God and to trust God and to give God our all, because God has given us His very best in His Son Jesus Christ, and given us His all when Jesus died on the cross for us. I mean, He left it all there for us, all the way to Calvary. He went for me. He went for you, and so what does it mean for us to really, just really give everything that we have? Will we be like the rich young ruler? When God asks us, okay, well, you have, he's just playing around with him. Yeah, you have. You've been perfect. But this part, just this one.
Right.
Sell all your possessions and give to the poor, and then come follow me. Yeah. What is that in our lives? What is that idol? What is that thing? Yeah. In our lives that we can't give up? Is it money? Is it a relationship? That we shouldn't be in? Is it an addiction? Is it either to porn, drugs, alcohol? What is it? Is it?
Well, the list is long.
Is it vanity? Like, there's a list. I mean, there's a lot. What is it that we cannot give up? What is it we have our hands so tightly, grip that we cannot give to God and we can't give to others? Yeah. If you can't give to God, you definitely can't give to other people. Yeah. Because you can't trust that people going to give you back what you've given them. That's for sure.
That's right.
When you let it go, you better believe, you just got to assume you may not get it back. And that's okay. Yeah. That's okay if your posture is, oh, I just want to bless you.
Yeah. Well, and God ties His acceptance of our giving to our acts of giving to those who can't give anything to us.
Yes.
So when we care for or we serve, I mean, give us anything in a kind of a commercialized sense, right? But when we give to those, when we give to children who don't have resources to give us anything back, to homeless, to orphans, to widows, to sojourners, to the imprisoned, that is, God says, when you did that, that's when you blessed me.
That's right.
And so that shows you that God is deciding, the God who created the cosmos and has wealth, resource beyond our imagination. The oceans belong to the Lord. That's a God who's saying, I identify with the people that you think have nothing and that think can offer you nothing. That when you bless them, you bless me. And so I think that's just a powerful reminder too about how we rank and value people as well. And that God is reminding us of that. And then, as you mentioned, the rich young ruler, I mean, the text tells us that the reason why he walked away sad, it's because he had money.
He had so much.
It is because he had money. And the ways that, you think about the Proverbs that talk about how, Lord, don't give me too much.
That's your problem.
Because then I will forget that I need you. And don't give me too little, because I'll be tempted to curse your name. Lord. And that
look at
the temptations. The temptations are real. How money is exposing. And I think what it is that money is very deceptive. It can make us believe that we are in control.
Well,
money, and don't get me wrong, I mean, poverty is crushing. And the wages and implications of poverty are dehumanizing to people. People should not ever be in a position in a world with this much wealth and natural resources to be begging. That is a point of shame to every other human that we should experience. But having money in and of itself sends the delusion that we actually take care of ourselves. Like that
That's
we
right.
actually run stuff. Like
That's
that, like at any moment there could not be a natural disaster. Money can't stop your natural disaster. Like there's so many things that money just cannot
buy
prevent
and cannot. That's
in
right.
your life that cannot stop. And so I do think there's a way in which the Lord is shaping us and sanctifying us about our relationship with money in seasons where we may have lack and seasons where we might have great resources. And I think it's a part of our Christian maturity. I think when we get to a place where we delight in being able to be the giver, it is better to give than to receive. And there is something about being the person who, not because you have all the power or control, but a person who just has open hands and an open heart.
Mm-hmm.
You know, open hearts have open hands to the extent that they have something to give. And I do remember, you know, as a kid growing up, I've talked about Miss B. Gaddy before she developed homeless shelters in Baltimore when I was a kid. She used to live on the same block as me. And I think initially when I was a small kid, I don't think she necessarily had homeless shelters or a whole lot of resources. She had the ability to make food from her kitchen. And she'd open her door and she would feed the unhoused veterans who lived in that neighborhood. And it's an early childhood lesson and a reminder that if we have more than what we need at the moment, then we have something to give.
More than it, exactly. Ironically, a Kendrick Lamar song came to mind.
Come on,
from his album. You know, he's been
in the news apparently. Carry on.
His album To Pimp a Butterfly. I think one of the last tracks is How Much a Dollar Really Costs. One of my favorite songs, and he just talks about really. He's actually in some ways, if you wanted to loosely use exposition. He was actually talking about that scripture about how, you know, if you did that for me. Yeah, I'm sorry. When you did that, you know, when you visit your sick person, you visit them in prison, you did that for me. Talking about Jesus, right? Yeah. And so at the end of the song, he's really speaking as, you know, as Jesus. Like, you know, how much does $1 really cost? You know, you see these people unhoused, you see people that are without, you know, and we pass them by, we don't help them or whatever. Or when we do help them, you know, you're actually helping Jesus, you know, like when did I see you poor and when did I not, you know? So anyway, I love that song because I think it's just a really powerful note. And I remember early on my walk, kind of struggling. Do I give my money to, you know, the unhoused that are begging? Do I need to? And now, please, I give people their money. You know what I mean? Because it ain't mine. First of all, it's not my money. Second of all, I think there's ways in which we can be elitist and we can pathologize people and practice paternalism, as if unhoused neighbors or people that are not as fortunate, you know, as us, don't know how to make the right decisions, right? Or they don't know what's best for them, or as if they don't deserve a little treat or a little whatever they want to buy. You know what I mean?
Because we certainly buy junk.
Are they not entitled to junk? Are they not entitled to a beer if they want? I'm serious. So what? I mean, really, who am I? You know, to do now? Am I gonna give you a pack of beer? No, I'm gonna give you the money. That's between you and the Lord. What you gonna do with that? You know, and so I think that's something that we have to. I think we have to be yielded to the Spirit on how we give, on when we give. But that is something that you know, for many years now, that you know, I do intentionally make sure, like, okay, I have some money in my wallet, which, you know, these days, you know, that you got to be intentional about that.
that traditional dollar bill,
the money that folds. About that. But I do try to make sure I have a little something, right? Because I know the places in my neighborhood where I'm going to go, and there will most likely be somebody that is unhoused that will ask, you know, for money. And if I'm able to at that stoplight and I can reach them and you know, and then I give them a little word of encouragement. Well, and ultimately, I think gratitude is what fuels generosity, like your own personal reflection of gratitude. If I think about all the ways that I have been helped by others, like I don't try to keep up with math, and you know what my relationship is like with money. I expect God to take care of me. Amen.
I expect God to provide. Amen. And I don't even ask questions about where it's coming from. I mean, I'm, you know,
amen.
However, you know, I'm a child of the '80s, so I'm like, if Ed McMahon, God rest his soul, when I open my mailbox, I'm like, is it my $1 million check today?
Publishers Clearinghouse. Woo, you went back to the old school.
I'm like, where are you, Ed McMahon? But I mean, why
real
not?
Real ones know.
Why not? Real ones know. But all that is to say that I have been. I mean, God has been so generous to me.
Ed McMahon.
And I don't even mean I don't mean just like in a dollars and cents. I mean, just generous to me. Like, to have the physical health that I have, to have the home that I have, to have left places just
We
in
survived
time.
the pandemic.
Hello,
We survived the pandemic. The
I mean,
millions did
just
not.
tremendous grace, tremendous grace. And so I think people who practice like the mindfulness practice of meditating on gratitude,
That's right.
what comes up out of you is joy, but also generosity. You realize that you're not in a place of desperation in the way that maybe you thought you were before you started practicing gratitude. And then you realize I actually do have something to give, even if it's not dollars and cents, even if it is a word of encouragement, even if it is prayer, even if it is kindness, kindness, we actually have something to give to other people, and they're actually due that. They're owed that. Other image bearers are owed that. But I would say in the context of the covenant community, we have like covenantal obligations to each other. Like we really do owe each other things. we owe each other things in the context of the church. So we can't just like bail on each other,
That's right.
because we do owe each other something within that context. So gratitude, I think, is what fuels and catalyzes generosity overall.
Sure. Absolutely. So what are some ways, before as we come to our close, what are some ways that we can practically encourage people that are like, man, that are really struggling with stinginess? Stinginess? That's true. Stinginess unto God, but unto others, or scarcity, or maybe it's not stinginess, but or scarcity.
Yeah.
That are like, oh my gosh, if I give this, I won't get it back, or I won't be able to make this rent, or things are hard. Things are expensive. I do understand. We are also living in this world, in this society. It's expensive.
That's a fact.
Everything's expensive. I just bought a $6 drink somewhere. I was like, for this little thing?
I know. These
took
drinks.
2 sips and it was gone. And so
too much ice. Don't get no ice. Don't pay for ice no more, y'all.
All the ice. Give it to me lukewarm. Okay? Yes.
I'll get my own ice at home.
I want all of my dollars that I but yeah, how can we encourage, people that are like, I really struggle in this area of generosity and giving? I mean, what comes to mind for me is just kind of, because I've had good days, I've had bad days.
Yeah.
I know what it is to have a lot. I know what it is to have a little, and I understand. I do think there is, but I think gratitude is huge, because when the Lord does bless and gives more, it's like, whoo, at least for me, I'm so grateful. I'm like, Lord, I'm so glad I can time this, at least it's more than what I had. It's not quite where I want to be, but it's more than what I had. So I'm so glad I can give it to you, Lord. But even when there was lack and when things were tighter, let me say it that way, when things were tighter, I would, at least for me, something practical I would do was just like, God will take care of me. Like this. God will take care of me as I'm writing the check, as I'm putting the money in the offering plate, God will take care of me.
Giving, it is an act of faith in that sense. It is an act of faith in that sense. It's not like, let's make a deal. Now you have to take care of me in this way. Right. But it is an expression of, no, I'm not taking care of myself. This dollar is not taking care of me ultimately.
Exactly. Exactly. The bank account, however many zeros you got behind it, that is not where our security is. I promise you.
And I hope that you have many zeros and you give to True Stable Foundation.
Oh, yes. Great segue. Talk about that, how they can practically
listen. Hello, if you're wondering.
I know that was going to be your practical tip.
This is a practical application. Let me show you something to give to.
But how would you encourage somebody? Yeah, that is kind of like struggling.
Yeah, I think you have to practically count your blessings. I think you have to also acknowledge and heal from ways that maybe you have been mistreated around money. Maybe you have been exploited around money. If you have had poverty related trauma, that is worth naming, acknowledging, and healing from. God sees you. God loves you, and there is a need for some care around that, right?
Yeah.
That can kind of sow and create a scarcity mentality, which could be different than somebody who's just like greedy and I'm a hoarder. I'm not giving anything to anybody else, right?
Yeah.
And so I think there's grace for that. I think, and I also think that there are some ways in which people who may be struggling with giving, besides those other issues, it could be that they're looking too closely at here and now. It's kind of a very temporary way of seeing the world. I think for believers, we're looking at the world with like an eternal lens. Like this is the beginning of my life.
That's right.
And when I say beginning, I mean like the infancy of my life, people who are looking at eternity. And so God has so much runway, God has so much room to bless me that even if my present moment feels like, oh, this is overwhelming.
And forever. Right?
And forever and forever and forevermore. And I think I would invite people to take the long view.
Yeah.
The long view. And when we're in something, everything feels like this is all it is. It's all it will ever be. And we don't have, but we are long view people. We like eternal view people. Absolutely. And so, and again, and we are these things, but yet we have to be reminded of these things. Yeah. Like we are holy and set apart, yet we have to be
to grow into these things.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We are, and yet we have to be. This is kind of the way of the Christian, right? So we've been designated something, but then we have to perform like it too and become it. And so I think the same way, like we are God's beloved, generous children. Now we got to act like it.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I thank you, my generous sister.
Well, Lord grant more that we might be generous.
Amen.
And let us be generous with what we have now.
And why don't you make sure you surround yourself with friends and people that are generous. I think that's a type of contagion.
Oh my goodness.
That is a type of contagion. Generosity is a contagion.
Not to be confused with friends who got a lot of money.
Oh yeah, but, exactly.
Right.
No, but
because some people do give advice like, who's in your circle? Are they up and coming? And I'm like, who is in your circle? Are they kind? Are they open-hearted? Are they open-handed? Right. And sometimes they could be the same people. They can. But sometimes we go straight to who got the money. No. Yeah. No, but I think generosity and gratitude is a type of contagion, a good contagion. So you want to get around people that are also generous and giving, right? And where you all give to one another. Yeah. In a multitude of ways, through prayer, through presence, like we talked about, opening up your home to one another. Just there's so many ways to give to one another. Let's outdo each other. Yes.
And showing love and showing generosity, showing care.
Don't despise your little ministry that you got. Don't despise it. I mean, as you were talking, I was thinking about my mother-in-law has this thing. She loves to shop. She loves to shop.
She don't play.
And but I'll come into the house and on the dining room table, she'll have something just laid there. And it's something that she's like, when I was out, I just thought about you. And these aren't like super expensive outfits. I mean, she's a very good, I
have a couple of outfits.
Goodwill, budget basement shopper type, right? She's got a great eye. But even more importantly than like the great eye, whether you like it, is that she thought about you in the moment. And I would encourage somebody that don't despise that. Don't despise like your Post-it note with a smile on it that you create, that you stick on your coworker's computer. Because when's the last time someone smiled at them without wanting something from them? Well, so we actually all do have something to give. I just don't want us to psych ourselves out of that.
That's right. No, that's good. Well, as you can see, we can keep going on and on about giving. So we want to hear from you. Well, first of all, I want to thank you.
And I want to thank you for your generosity.
No, I love you. I love you, my friend.
Love you back.
And we want to thank y'all. And we love y'all too. Thank you for taking a seat at the table with us. We would love to hear your thoughts about giving and generosity and your time, talents, treasure, and presence. Can't forget about that. Amen. Please share your thoughts with us on Instagram, X, formerly known as Twitter, and Facebook, and Black women. We do have a Black women's Facebook discipleship group. So all you got to do is look up Truth Table. You can join the group. You do have to answer the entry questions. They are not difficult, and agree to the group rules, and you will be admitted where we can talk more about these topics and more. We delve into the podcast, and then we have teachings and all that. So please join us. And then also, please rate and review the show on iTunes and subscribe on your favorite podcast player. We have been your hosts, Ekemini
and Christina.
We'll see you soon on the next Truth Table. Bye, y'all.